Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we're on a really fascinating mission. We're looking at sources that connect the deepest parts of brain science, the
Yeah.
hardware, with the practical psychology we use every day, the software. The goal here is to figure out how high achievers really think, and more importantly, what you can actually do to direct your own growth.
And to do that, we have to start with the foundation, which is neuroplasticity. It's a term that gets thrown around so much, right? As if you can just flip a switch and your brain changes. But we really need to reset that idea. Neuroplasticity is this magnificent but slow process where your neurons reorganize. They disentangle old connections and build entirely new ones. Your brain is always molding itself, but that rewiring, it's not fast. It takes time and real energy.
Okay, so if the brain is always capable of that kind of growth, that brings up the big question. Can anyone become a high performer, no matter where they're starting from?
Oh, absolutely. Yes. High performance, if we just define it as being able to solve a complex problem better than other people, it's completely achievable. It doesn't matter if it's launching a rocket or, writing amazing code. The brain has the capacity. The real difference, the bottleneck, comes down to two things: time and, more importantly, motivation. Sustained motivation.
Right. If motivation is the key, then we have to look at the chemistry. We always hear about dopamine, and you call it the glue for neuroplasticity.
That's a good way to put it. It's the glue. It's necessary for the change to actually stick. Without it, you just can't maintain the focus you need for those new neural pathways to form. But here's the biggest mistake people make. They call it the happiness molecule. It's not. It is fundamentally the motivation molecule, the pursuit molecule.
And the evolutionary reason for that is so helpful, isn't it? It didn't evolve for us to scroll through social media feeds. It was for, core survival.
Yeah.
Chasing down a meal.
Exactly. It's about the seeking, the anticipation, not the getting, not the contentment. And to really understand how a high achiever stays focused for years, you have to look at how dopamine works with another chemical, serotonin.
Okay, so if dopamine is seeking, serotonin is more what?
Contentment,
That's all?
satiety. Yeah, you can think of it like that. It's related to having enough or feeling a certain status, and your brain is constantly doing this little calculation with both of them to assign value to things. High dopamine, you're always seeking. Too much serotonin, you lose the drive to change anything, you're just content.
So that's why my attention goes where it goes. Whatever activity my brain calculates as having the highest value
Yeah.
or the easiest reward, that's what gets all my focus. So watching cricket might feel more valuable in the moment than reading some dense book.
Cricket wins every time in that scenario. And here's the key thing for you to remember. Pretty much all functioning human beings have the same capacity for these chemicals. The difference isn't the amount of dopamine. It's about where that motivation is consistently directed. High achievers wire their brains to value the hard stuff.
That makes the first takeaway so clear.
Yeah.
I mean, it sounds simple, but choose a job or a project you actually enjoy.
Yeah.
Then the motivation is already there, right? And the neuroplasticity just happens more easily.
But what if you can't? What if you're stuck in a job you don't enjoy?
Right.
That's where we move from the chemistry to the psychology. You have to sort of reverse engineer your own drive.
How do you do that? How do you trick your brain into liking something that's just boring or hard?
You use the brain's biggest trick, your own identity, your ego. You will find enjoyment in absolutely anything you identify with. It's not about the task. It's about connecting that task to who you believe you are. A doctor doesn't just see patients. She sees herself as a puzzle solver. Medicine is just the arena.
So that's actionable takeaway number 2. Create a really strong self-narrative. And then for any project, you consciously find that narrative inside of it. The motivation gets easier when you can tell yourself, this is who I am, this is what people like me do.
Exactly. A useful analogy I like is to view your work as a sport. Life is a competition, sure, but not against other people. It's against obstacles. A high performer sees a failure not as I'm a failure, but as a missed shot, a data point. They just go back to the drawing board and figure out a new strategy.
I love that, especially for kids and students, because it completely reframes what failure is. It's just part of the game. It's expected.
And it teaches you that you need a team. You don't play a sport alone. So how do you discover your narrative if you've never thought about it before?
Well, it's already there, isn't it?
Sure.
Formed by our childhood, the way our parents processed emotions.
Yeah.
It's all in there.
It is. A really simple tool is to just look at the art you love. What are your 3 or 4 favorite movies of all time? What music do you go back to again and again? You relate to that character's arc, that struggle, because it mirrors a story you believe about yourself. Art is the mirror.
That's a great tool, very accessible. Okay, so to make that story explicit, you have this practical exercise. Write your life story, but in the third person. Why third person?
Because writing, I did this, I felt that, keeps you trapped inside your own bias. Your ego is defending itself. But writing, he went to college. He struggled with this. He ran away from that conflict. It creates distance. You're forced to look at your own actions like an observer. And you immediately spot the contradictions, the places where your actions don't match the story you want to believe about yourself.
Like saying you're a calm person, but the story shows 5 times you completely lost your cool under pressure. And that conflict is what stops you from growing. The denial.
That contradiction is the source of so much internal friction. Real growth can only happen when the CEO of your brain finally admits, okay, that's not who I actually am right now.
And that brings us to the CEO itself. The prefrontal cortex, the PFC. You have the old, primitive limbic system doing fear and attraction. And then you have the PFC.
Right, and it's what really makes us human. Its superpower is working memory, executive control. The PFC lets you hold information in your head long enough to learn from a mistake and plan a new approach. It's what allows for long-term strategy. High achievers live in their PFC. They review errors, they calculate new plans. It's all happening there.
So it's not just learning, it's a disciplined review of your mistakes over a long, long time.
Yes. But here is the critical, crucial piece of this whole puzzle. The PFC is not fully mature, not fully online until you're about 25 years old.
That's terrifying, because if you go through some major emotional event at, say, 13 or 14, your emotional brain is dealing with it without a fully formed CEO to guide it.
And that's where so many of our unhelpful behavioral patterns come from. They get locked in. Then later, when your PFC is mature at, say, 30, it has to go back and clean up all that old unresolved stuff. And, well, that's hard work. So a lot of people just suppress it.
Which is where clinical therapy comes in, I assume.
It's exactly where it comes in. If the PFC is your internal CEO, then therapy is. Well, it's outsourcing the CEO's job for a while.
When your own PFC is just too overwhelmed to do it alone.
Precisely. You're borrowing the stable, objective PFC of a guide the therapist to help you process things. We're not really taught how to regulate our emotions culturally. We're taught to just be positive. Therapy helps you actually feel what you need to feel to get to the other side.
And that need for outsourcing is more common than ever because we are just living in a world of chronic stress.
Yeah.
We have to talk about mental fitness, about how you stay ready for those negative phases.
For that, you have to understand the body's oldest system, the autonomic nervous system, or ANS. It controls breathing, heart rate, digestion, all the unconscious stuff. And it really only has 2 modes. Parasympathetic, which is rest, safety, digest, and sympathetic, which is danger, threat, fight, or flight.
And the modern world has basically tricked our ancient wiring into thinking we're always in danger.
We are stuck. We are fighting way too much and resting way too little. We're in a chronic, hypersympathetic state. And this is a massive risk factor for almost every major illness, physical and mental. We are stuck in war mode.
And when we feel that constant dread, we reach for coping mechanisms. You call them strokes. And there are bad strokes, which were just about getting a quick dopamine hit to feel better.
A bad stroke is anything external and fast. Sugar, alcohol, binge watching a show, doom scrolling. They give you this huge immediate rush of dopamine, which feels good for a second, but the fix runs out. And often it makes things worse. You drink to cope, you ruin your sleep, and you wake up even more anxious.
So we need good strokes, internal, sustainable things. You say the 2 big ones are movement and community.
Community is just fundamental. We evolved to regulate our emotions in a tribe together. When you're with people you trust, your brain releases oxytocin, the bonding molecule. And oxytocin directly counteracts stress hormones like cortisol.
So it's a chemical signal of safety. The brain is saying, okay, I'm not alone, I can relax now.
Yes. High performers always talk about their mastermind groups or their coaches. This is the neuroscience behind why that works. It's maybe the fastest way to get your nervous system back into that parasympathetic safety zone.
Okay, let's talk about the second good stroke. Movement. If community gives us safety, movement seems to be about manually pumping that motivation molecule.
It's the most natural way to increase dopamine, period. If you are feeling low, stuck, anxious, the rule is so simple. Get up and walk fast for 5 to 10 minutes, swing your arms, get your heart rate up. You are literally firing up a chemical cascade that will shift your mood. The problem you're worried about won't have changed, but the way your brain is looking at it will have changed completely.
It's an intervention, the way to manage your own internal state. You can even use it in a conflict, can't you?
Oh, it's brilliant for that. If you're in a heated argument with your partner, just stop. Force yourselves to go for a fast walk together. No talking. Just walk for 3 laps around the block. The conversation you have after will be infinitely more rational. You're using your PFC, not your panicked limbic system.
Now, I have to ask about something specific. Flexibility, stretching. I've had this experience in yoga, where you hold a really deep hip stretch, and suddenly all this emotion just comes up out of nowhere. What is actually happening there?
That is a perfect illustration of the whole system we've been talking about. When you're stressed in that sympathetic state, your muscles get tight and rigid. That's your body's armor. When you do a deep stretch, you are manually forcing those muscles to relax. And that sends a powerful signal to your brain, forcing a switch from the sympathetic threat state to the parasympathetic safety state.
But why the hips specifically? Why is that such an emotional area for so many people?
It's about the nervous system's highway. Your emotions, your memories, they're stored in the nervous system. The nerves around your hips and lower back are part of a massive bundle called the lumbosacral plexus. You can think of it as a master switchboard for calm. When you release the deep physical tension there, it sends this huge all-clear signal up the spinal cord. The body goes into such a deep state of relaxation that trapped emotional patterns, well, they can finally surface to be processed.
So a flexible body really is a flexible mind.
It's a profound marker of health. It means you're spending enough time in that parasympathetic state. It makes you more adaptable. When something unexpected happens, you're less likely to just freeze up and lose your mind. Your PFC stays online.
This has been just an incredible framework. Let's try to synthesize the big takeaways for everyone listening. 1, neuroplasticity is real, but growth needs motivated action and it needs time. 2, direct your motivation by defining your self-narrative. Writing your story in the third person is a great way to start. 3, your PFC is your CEO. Train it. And if you need to, outsource its job to a therapist to process old conflicts. And 4, fight chronic stress with good strokes. Use movement to pump dopamine and community to trigger feelings of safety.
And the final thought is, it's maybe a bit dark, but I find it really empowering. Suffering is inevitable, and it is the necessary step before all growth. Every time you suffer, meaning you face something your current toolkit can't handle, that pain is the signal. It's the signal that growth is about to happen. You just have to lean into it.
A powerful place to end. Lean into the challenge. Approach life with that full commitment. And remember the old line, don't go gently into that good night. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. We'll see you next time.